Yuna sat in the back row of the classroom, her fingers tapping notes into her datapad. Through the massive window behind her, a purple nebula stretched across space like paint spilled on black canvas. She had been staring at that nebula for 3 months now, ever since she arrived at Velthara Station. It never got old. The classroom held 40 students from 20 different worlds. Most of them breathed the same air she did, but some sat behind shimmering force fields that kept their atmosphere separate. One student lived in a tank of green liquid. Another floated in a gravity-reduced zone near the ceiling. Professor Quilmara drifted at the front of the room. The professor was a Metharian, living inside a containment suit filled with orange methane gas. When Quilmara spoke, the translator made the voice sound like wind chimes. "Today we discuss perspective-based morality," the professor said. "What is right on one world may be wrong on another. What seems cruel to one species may seem kind to another." Yuna liked this class. She liked thinking about how different minds worked. Back home in Gangwon Province, her grandmother used to say that understanding others was the first step to living well. The mountains had taught Yuna patience, the winters had taught her endurance, and the wild animals that sometimes came too close to the village had taught her awareness. A large shape shifted 3 rows ahead. Vexithari was a Krillian, nearly 2 meters tall with a body covered in purple crystalline plates. His head looked like a beetle's, with compound eyes that glittered in the classroom light. 6 limbs supported his heavy frame. "This is foolish talk," Vexithari said, his voice buzzing through his translator. "Some species are simply superior. They rise naturally. Others are weak and fall behind." Professor Quilmara's suit brightened slightly, a sign of interest. "An opinion, Vexithari. Can you support it with evidence?" "Look at the humans." Vexithari gestured toward Yuna with one of his middle limbs. "They only reached space 30 years ago. Barely civilized. Their world is so primitive, they still have nations that fight each other. They come from a death world and act like savages who learn to use technology." Several students turned to look at Yuna. She felt their eyes on her but didn't look up from her datapad. She had heard worse. When Earth first joined the Galactic Confederacy 3 years ago, the news feeds had been full of commentary. Most aliens seemed to think humans were either dangerous monsters or lucky primitives who stumbled into space travel by accident. "Yuna," Professor Quilmara's voice was gentle. "Would you like to respond?" Yuna looked up and smiled. It was the same smile she gave her grandmother when the old woman teased her. Warm and unbothered. "Earth has 8 billion people living in thousands of different cultures," she said simply. "We have art that is 10,000 years old. We have philosophies about peace that are older than some species' space programs. We do have conflicts, yes, but we also have cooperation on a scale that covers an entire planet. We didn't reach space because we were violent. We reached space because we learned to work together." She paused, then added, "And I think calling someone savage says more about the speaker than the person being described." A few students made noises that the translator couldn't quite interpret. Some might have been laughs, others might have been gasps. Vexithari's carapace darkened from purple to deep blue. Yuna knew from her xenobiology studies that this meant anger or stress. "You dare!" Vexithari started. "That's enough," Professor Quilmara said firmly. "This is a classroom for discussion, not insults. Vexithari, please remember our conduct guidelines." The class continued, but the air felt heavy now. Yuna went back to her notes. She was studying the genetic adaptation patterns of species from high-radiation worlds. Fascinating stuff. She barely noticed when Vexithari kept glancing back at her with his compound eyes. When class ended, Yuna packed her things slowly. Other students hurried out, giving Vexithari and her a wide space. The Krillian stomped out of the room, his 6 legs hitting the floor with heavy clicks. "You okay?" A voice spoke in Korean. Yuna turned and saw Taman standing in the doorway. He was a second-year student, one of only 7 humans at the entire academy. He had taken it upon himself to watch out for the newer human students. "I'm fine," Yuna replied in the same language. It felt good to speak Korean after hours of Galactic Standard. "He's just scared." "Scared?" Taman raised an eyebrow. "He called you a savage." "People say mean things when they're afraid," Yuna said. She walked toward the door, and Taman fell into step beside her. "Did you know the Krillians lost their independence 60 years ago? Their whole world is controlled by the Thakari Empire now. Vexathari probably grew up being told his people were warriors and strong. Then he comes here and sees species from peaceful worlds doing better than him academically. That has to hurt." Taman shook his head. "You're too nice sometimes. Grandmother always said that understanding isn't the same as accepting bad behavior," Yuna said. "I understand why he's angry, but that doesn't make it okay." They walked through the curved corridors of Velthara Station. The station was enormous, home to 50,000 students from across the galaxy. Every corridor had different sections for different gravity levels and atmospheres. Yuna and Taman walked in the standard section, where most carbon-based life forms could survive comfortably. The cafeteria was crowded during lunch hours. Yuna grabbed a tray of food that was supposedly based on Earth cuisine. It didn't taste quite right, but it was edible. She sat at a table near the viewing window with Taman. "Hana's going to be late," Yuna said, checking her messages. "She's still in the medical lab." "That girl works too hard," Taman said. "Says the person who pulled 2 all-nighters this week," Yuna replied. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Yuna watched other students. A group of Letharians clustered together at a far table, their crystalline bodies refracting light into rainbows. Some Dendro students, who looked like walking trees, stood near a window absorbing starlight. A Pequi student, barely 30 centimeters tall, sat on a special elevated chair. Everyone here was strange to someone. That's what Yuna liked about the academy. Back on Earth, she had been ordinary. Here, she was exotic just for being human, but so was everyone else in their own way. "Be careful around Vexthari," Taman said suddenly. "Krillians have a thing about honor challenges. If he thinks you insulted him, he might try to make it physical." "I didn't insult him," Yuna said. "You embarrassed him in front of the class," Taman pointed out. "Same thing in his culture." Yuna thought about this. She had read about Krillian customs, but she hadn't meant to cause offense. Maybe she should apologize? No, that might make it worse. In Krillian culture, apologizing could be seen as admitting weakness. "I'll be careful," she promised. That evening, Yuna sat in the small room she shared with Hana. The room had 2 sleeping pods, 2 workstations, and 1 window. It wasn't much, but it was more than many students had. Some species needed special containment or specific atmospheric conditions. Humans were lucky. They could breathe the standard atmosphere that most of the station used. She opened a video call to Earth. Her mother's face appeared on the screen, smiling widely. "Yuna, how are you, my daughter?" "I'm good, Mom," Yuna said. They chatted about small things. Her mother talked about the garden. Her father had fixed the roof. Her grandmother wanted to know if Yuna was eating well. "I had an interesting day in class," Yuna said. She told them about Vexathari, leaving out the parts that might worry them. "Some people carry heavy burdens," her grandmother's voice came from off-screen. The old woman moved into view, her weathered face serious. "Be kind, but be careful. Not everyone wants kindness." "I will, grandmother," Yuna promised. After the call ended, Yuna lay in her sleeping pod and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the purple nebula glowed against the black of space. Somewhere out there was Earth, tiny and blue and full of life that refused to quit. Yuna thought about home, the mountains where bears still roamed, The winters that could kill if you weren't prepared. The summers with their sudden floods. Earth was beautiful and dangerous, and it had made humans into survivors. She smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would be better. It had to be. She had no idea how wrong she was. 3 days passed without incident. Yuna almost forgot about the tension in Professor Kulmara's class. She was too busy with her studies. Advanced xenobiology was her favorite subject. And today they were examining protein samples from different worlds. The lab was larger than the regular classroom. Different sections had different environmental controls. Force fields separated areas where students needed special atmospheres. Yuna worked at a station in the standard zone, peering into a scanner that showed the molecular structure of proteins from a methane-based life form. Hana had won a research grant last week. It was a big deal, a prestigious award that came with funding and recognition. Yuna had been so proud of her friend, but she noticed that Vexithari had been one of the other candidates. He hadn't taken the loss well. Today, Vexithari was working at a station across the room. His carapace was darker than usual, shifting between deep blue and almost black. His movements were jerky, aggressive. The other students near him had quietly moved their stations farther away. Professor Kulmara was at the front of the lab, but then the professor's communication device chimed. Kulmara looked at it and announced, "I must take this call. It's from the department head. Please continue your work. I'll be right outside." The professor left. The door slid shut with a soft hiss. For a few minutes, everything was normal. Students worked at their stations. The quiet hum of equipment filled the air. Yuna was noting down measurements when she heard a strange sound. It was a clicking noise, like stones striking together. She looked up and saw Vexithari standing rigid at his station. His carapace was completely black now. His vocal sacs, small organs on his throat, were pulsing rapidly. That was bad. Yuna had studied Krillian biology. That pulsing meant extreme stress or rage. Then Vexithari reached into his bag. When his claw came out, it held a blade. The weapon was about 40 centimeters long, curved like a crescent moon. It gleamed under the lab lights with an edge that looked sharp enough to cut air. Yuna recognized it from her studies, a chakara blade, ceremonial weapon of Krillian warriors. "I am diminished." Vexithari's voice was a shriek that made the translator crackle. "Lesser beings, take what is mine. I challenge the Deathworlder. I challenge for my honor." The lab erupted into chaos. Students screamed. The Letharians, whose bodies were fragile crystal, bolted for the door. Several Pequi students activated emergency beacons. A Dendros student froze in place, which was their species' fear response. Taman was across the room. Yuna saw him start to move toward her, but 3 other students were in his way, all trying to flee. Vexithari advanced toward Yuna. His 6 legs moved in a coordinated rush. The blade was raised high. In Krillian culture, displaying the blade was a formal challenge to death combat. Refusing meant dishonor. Accepting meant fighting to the end. Most students would run. Most students would scream. Most students came from safe worlds where violence was ancient history. Yuna was not most students. She set down her sample tray carefully. The proteins she was studying were expensive and hard to get. It would be rude to waste them. Then she straightened and looked at Vexithari. She smiled. It was the same calm smile she wore when hiking in the mountains back home, the smile that said she was exactly where she meant to be. "That's a beautiful blade," she said in perfect Krillian dialect. "Is it your grandfather's?" Vexithari stumbled slightly. He hadn't expected her to speak his language. He certainly hadn't expected her to comment on the blade with genuine appreciation. You dare mock me?" His voice was confused now, less certain. "I will end you, human." "I'm not mocking you," Yuna said. She took a step forward. Not back. Forward. "I grew up in mountains where bears lived. Big animals with claws that could tear through wood. We also had leopards and wild boars. My grandmother taught me that weapons show the spirit of who holds them. Your spirit seems troubled. Maybe we should talk? Vexathari's compound eyes couldn't show emotion the way human eyes did. But his body language screamed confusion and rage fighting each other. The confusion lost. He lunged. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Later, those 3 seconds would be watched and rewatched across the entire galaxy. Vexathari came fast. His warrior training was clear in the way he moved. The blade cut through the air in an arc designed to kill. Yuna moved. Her body shifted to the side, minimal movement, nothing wasted. The blade passed so close to her that it cut a strand of her hair. Her hand snapped out and grabbed Vexathari's gripping appendage, the claw that held the blade. She knew Krillian anatomy. Every xenobiology student did. There was a joint cluster about halfway up the gripping appendage, a place where 3 joints met. It was a weak point, used for fine motor control. If you applied pressure there in just the right way, Yuna pressed. Hard. Vexathari's entire arm went numb. The blade fell from his suddenly useless claw and clattered on the floor. But Yuna wasn't done. In one smooth motion, she hooked her foot around one of his legs. Krillians were stable with 6 legs, but stability only worked if weight was distributed properly. Vexathari fell. Yuna controlled the fall so he wouldn't hurt himself on the lab equipment. He landed face down with a heavy thud. Before he could recover, Yuna dropped to one knee on his thorax, right where his breathing spiracles were located. She didn't press hard enough to cut off his air, just hard enough to control it. If he struggled too much, he wouldn't be able to breathe. If he stayed still, he was fine. With her free hand, Yuna picked up the Chakara blade. She examined it with real interest. The craftsmanship was excellent. The balance was perfect. It was a weapon made with love and care. "This really is beautiful," she said softly. "Your family must be very proud of their traditions." Under her knee, Vexathari made a sound between a wheeze and a sob. Yuna waited. Her breathing was calm. Her heart rate was barely elevated. This was nothing compared to the time a bear had wandered into her village when she was 14. That had been scary. This was just sad. The lab doors burst open. Station security rushed in, weapons drawn. They stopped when they saw the scene. A small human girl kneeling on a large Krillian warrior. The human was scrolling through her datapad with one hand. The blade rested safely on a nearby table. "Oh, good," Yuna said in Galactic Standard. "Could someone please help? I need to get back to my samples before they degrade." The security chief, a Vorath with thick armor plating, approached carefully. Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine," Yuna said. She looked down at Vexathari. "He's fine too, just upset. I didn't hurt him." "Release the Krillian and step back," the security chief ordered. Yuna did exactly as instructed. She stood up, moved back 3 steps, and bowed respectfully. Then she picked up the blade by its handle and offered it to the security chief handle first, the way you were supposed to hand over a weapon safely. Vexathari scrambled to his feet. His carapace was flickering between colors now. Humiliation, rage, confusion, all fighting for dominance. "She attacked me!" he shrieked. "The Deathworlder is a menace. She bested me with her bare hands. A tiny mammal defeated a Krillian warrior." The security team looked at each other. One of them had been recording everything on their body camera. They had all seen what happened. "Sir," one of the security officers said to Vexathari, "you attacked her with a weapon. She defended herself." "I challenged her honorably." "This station doesn't recognize honor challenges," the security chief said firmly. "You brought a weapon into a classroom and attacked another student. You're under arrest." As they led Vexathari away, he kept shrieking about honor and shame and being defeated by a human. Yuna watched him go with sad eyes. Taman finally reached her. "Are you okay? That was That was sad, Yuna finished. He's so lost. He needs help, not punishment. He tried to kill you. He was trying to feel strong, Yuna corrected. There's a difference. Professor Kulmara rushed back into the lab. What happened? I heard the security alert. By then, other students were gathered around Yuna. They stared at her like she was a dangerous animal. A few looked impressed. Most looked scared. Yuna just wanted to finish her lab work. The protein samples really were going to degrade if she didn't process them soon. But as she returned to her station, she had no idea that the security footage was already spreading. Within the hour, every student on the station would see it. Within 3 hours, it would hit Galactic Net. By the next day, the entire galaxy would know what a Deathworld human could do. And nothing would ever be quite the same again. The video was everywhere. Yuna woke up the next morning to find her communication device flooded with messages. Hundreds of them. Thousands. She blinked at the screen, confused. She had silenced her device during sleep hours, but the notifications had stacked up like a digital avalanche. Hana was already awake, staring at her own screen with wide eyes. Yuna, you need to see this. The video had been edited and posted on Galactic Net with a simple title, Deathworld Human Disarms Krillian Warrior Bare-Handed. Someone had put it to dramatic music. Someone else had added slow-motion effects. The part where Yuna grabbed Vex Thari's arm had been replayed from multiple angles. The moment the blade fell had been frozen and highlighted. The ease with which she controlled his fall had been analyzed with graphics showing force and leverage. Oh no, Yuna whispered. Oh yes, Hana said. You're famous, galaxy famous. The video had 80 million views and counting. The comment section was a war zone. Different species argued about what it meant. Some called Yuna a hero. Others called her dangerous. Everyone had an opinion. One comment from a Vorath warrior read, Impressive technique, clean execution. She could be a fighter. Another from a Litharian said, This is exactly why Deathworlders shouldn't be allowed in mixed populations. Too dangerous. A Thakari military analyst wrote, Notice the reaction time. 0.14 seconds from blade movement to interception. Baseline human reflexes are already twice as fast as most species. This one is exceptional even for her kind. Someone had made a compilation video showing Earth's deadliest animals. Bears, tigers, crocodiles, sharks, hippos. The video was titled, These are the neighbors humans grew up with. Another video showed Earth's natural disasters, earthquakes that toppled cities, hurricanes that erased coastlines, tsunamis that swallowed islands, volcanoes that blotted out the sun. The title read, Earth, where even the planet tries to kill you. Yuna felt sick. This wasn't what she wanted. She had just tried to stop someone from hurting themselves and others. Now the whole galaxy was looking at humans like they were monsters or weapons. Come on, Hana said gently. We need to get breakfast before the cafeteria gets too crowded. They were too late. When they entered the cafeteria, conversations stopped. Every eye turned toward them. Well, not every eye. Some species didn't have eyes. But everyone was definitely paying attention. Yuna walked to get food with Hana beside her. Students moved out of their way. A Peki student actually jumped off their chair and fled. A group of Dendros students rustled their branches nervously. Taemin was already at their usual table. He had saved them seats. When they sat down, he leaned in close. Earth's diplomatic corps has been calling me all morning, he said quietly. They're worried this will damage human-alien relations. The ambassador wants to make a statement. What kind of statement? Yuna asked. The kind where they apologize for you defending yourself, Taemin said with disgust. They want to show that humans are peaceful and cooperative. They think if they don't apologize, other species will see humans as threats. That's stupid, Hana said. She was attacked. She defended herself. What's to apologize for? Politics, Taemin said. Earth is still new to the Confederacy. We're trying to prove we belong. One video of a human taking down an alien warrior makes us look aggressive. Yuna picked at her food. She wasn't hungry anymore. What do they want me to do? They want you to stay quiet. Let them handle it. Taman looked frustrated. I told them that was cowardly, but they don't care what I think. An announcement chimed through the cafeteria speakers. Student Yuna, please report to the administration office immediately. Hana squeezed her hand. Want us to come with you? No, Yuna said. I'll be okay. She wasn't sure she believed that. The administration office was on the top level of the station, where the gravity was slightly lighter. Important people from different worlds worked there, managing the academy and handling problems. Yuna had never been there before. The receptionist, a floating blob of intelligent gas, directed her to a conference room. Inside, she found 5 administrators from 5 different species, all looking serious. They sat behind a curved table. Yuna sat in a small chair facing them. We've reviewed the incident, said Administrator Plex, a Thakari with silver scales. And we've seen the video spreading on Galactic Net. I'm sorry it caused such attention, Yuna said. Sorry? Administrator Plex's head tilted. You disabled an armed attacker without injury to yourself or him. That's not something to apologize for. Yuna blinked. She had expected anger or accusations, not this. However, another administrator spoke. This was Willow Branch in Wind, a dendros. Her voice was like leaves rustling. The video has created a problem. Many species are now afraid of humans. They see you as dangerous. We're not dangerous, Yuna said. We're just careful. Explain the difference, said a third administrator, a Letharian whose crystal body refracted rainbow light. Yuna thought about her grandmother's lessons, about the mountains, about survival. Earth is hard. The weather can kill you. The animals can kill you. Even tiny organisms we can't see can kill you. Humans learned to be aware of danger because danger was everywhere. But we also learned that working together kept us alive better than fighting each other. We're careful because we have to be, but we're not violent because we want to be. Tell us, Administrator Plex said. What was going through your mind when Vexithari attacked? I was sad, Yuna said honestly. I saw someone in pain trying to hurt someone else to feel better. I wanted to stop him without hurting him, so I used what I knew about Krillian anatomy to disable him safely. I never wanted to hurt him. I still don't. He needs help. The administrators looked at each other. Some communication passed between them that Yuna couldn't read. There's going to be a hearing, Administrator Plex said. The Confederacy Council wants to discuss whether humans should face restrictions at the Academy. Some council members want all humans expelled. They say Deathworlders are too dangerous for mixed populations. Yuna felt cold. That's not fair. No, Administrator Plex agreed. It's not. But fear rarely is fair. You'll need to testify. Can you do that? Yes, Yuna said. She had no choice. For the next week, the video continued to spread. It became the most watched content on Galactic Net. Scientists pulled every piece of data they had about Earth. The results shocked most of the galaxy. A documentary called Hell is a Place Called Earth went viral. It showed Earth's gravity was standard by galactic measurements, but the planet's geological instability was extreme. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, continental plates that literally moved and crashed into each other. Earth's oxygen levels were toxic to 1/3 of known species. Humans breathed poison every day and called it air. Earth's predator density was among the highest ever recorded. Humans evolved alongside creatures that could run faster, climb better, swim deeper, and bite harder than they could. Humans survived not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest and most enduring. Earth's disease vectors were a microbiologist's nightmare. bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, all competing and evolving constantly. Human immune systems fought wars every single day. The documentary ended with a simple statement. Humans didn't just survive a death world. They thrived on it. They built civilizations. They created art and music and philosophy. They reached for the stars, not because their world was easy, but because nothing in their world ever was. Public opinion started to shift. Not everywhere, not everyone, but enough that Yuna noticed the change. In the cafeteria, a shy, pecky student approached her table. "Excuse me?" the tiny being said in a high-pitched voice. "I just wanted to say, thank you." "Thank you?" Yuna was confused. "For what?" "For showing that being strong doesn't mean being cruel," the pecky said. "You could have hurt him badly. You didn't." "That matters." Others started approaching too. Not many, but some. They wanted to know about Earth, about human culture, about how humans stayed peaceful when they came from such a violent world. Yuna started an informal group. They met in the evening in a common room. She taught them about Earth's history, about wars and peace, about art born from suffering, about the concept of Han that her grandmother had taught her, the Korean idea of collective sorrow and resilience. "We carry pain," she explained to a room of 20 different species. "But we don't let it make us cruel. We turn it into something else: music, stories, connection." Hana brought traditional Korean food that she had learned to make with station ingredients. Taemin showed them Korean films and music. Slowly, humans became less scary and more interesting. But the hearing was still coming, and not everyone was convinced that humans belonged in the academy. Yuna received a message from Vexathari. He was still in detention, waiting for his own hearing. The message was short. "Why did you not kill me when you could?" She replied, "Because I didn't need to. Because you deserved the chance to be better." His response came an hour later. "I do not understand Deathworlders." Yuna smiled as she typed back, "Maybe that's why we should talk." The galaxy was watching, and Yuna was about to teach them something about strength that they had never considered. True power wasn't in hurting others. It was in choosing not to. Yuna stood outside the detention center with a container of tea in her hands. The guards had searched it twice. Tea was harmless to Krillians, they confirmed. She could bring it inside. "You sure you want to do this?" one guard asked. She was a Vorath, all thick armor and cautious eyes. "He tried to kill you." "He tried to feel strong," Yuna corrected gently. "Different thing." The guard didn't look convinced, but let her through. Vexathari was in a small room behind a force field. The field was transparent but deadly. Touch it, and you'd get a shock strong enough to knock out most species. He sat on a low bench designed for his 6-legged body. When he saw Yuna, his carapace flickered from dark blue to almost black. "You came," he said. His translator made his voice sound surprised. "I said I would." Yuna sat down on her side of the force field. She poured tea into 2 cups. Hers she kept. His she placed near the force field. A guard would give it to him after checking it again. "This is from Earth. We call it green tea. I had to adjust it a bit for your biology. It should be safe and taste okay." Vexathari stared at the cup like it might explode. "Why?" "Because sharing tea is what we do when we want to talk. It's a tradition." "I attacked you." "I know." Yuna sipped her tea. "I've been reading about your world, about the Krillian subjugation wars, about how the Thakari Empire took control 60 years ago, about how your people went from being independent warriors to being managed." Vexthari's entire body went rigid. "You have no right to speak of that." "Maybe not," Yuna agreed. "But I come from a country that knows about being conquered. Korea was occupied by Japan for 35 years. Before I was born, but my grandmother lived through it. She told me stories about what it's like when someone else controls your home, when they tell you your culture is worthless, when they make you feel small. The Krillian's carapace shifted to a lighter blue. Confusion. Your world was conquered? Parts of it, many times. Different nations, different wars. Humans have spent most of their history either conquering or being conquered. We're not proud of it, but we learned things from it. Like what? That pain can make you angry or it can make you understanding. Grandmother called it Han. It's a Korean word for deep sadness that comes from injustice and hardship. But it's also about resilience, about carrying that pain and not letting it destroy you. Yuna looked at Vexathari directly. I think you have Han. You hurt because your people hurt. And you wanted someone to acknowledge that pain. Vexathari was quiet for a long time. Finally, he reached for the teacup. A guard brought it to him, and he drank it carefully. His compound eyes couldn't cry the way human eyes did, but his whole body language was speaking. Defeat, exhaustion, grief. I thought if I was strong enough, if I fought hard enough, people would respect Krillians again, he said quietly. But here, strength doesn't matter. The peaceful species do better than warriors. I'm failing my classes. I lost the grant. Everyone looks at me like I'm a relic from a violent past. You're not a relic, Yuna said. You're someone trying to find where they fit in a changing world. That's hard. I understand. How could you understand? You won. You defeated me with ease. I grew up in mountains, Yuna said. Beautiful mountains, but dangerous. Bears, leopards, wild boars. Long winters that could trap you in your house for weeks. My grandmother taught me to survive. But she also taught me something more important. She said the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall and choose to stand back up differently. Vexathari drank more tea. What does that mean? It means strength changes. Your people were warriors because that's what they needed to survive. But the galaxy has changed. Maybe Krillian strength can change too. Maybe it's about endurance now, about adapting, about using your warrior discipline for new things. Like what? You're studying engineering, right? Building things instead of breaking them. That takes discipline. Focus. All the things warriors have. Yuna smiled. Just pointed in a different direction. They talked for 2 hours. Yuna told him about Korea's history, about how her country had been invaded, divided, and had rebuilt itself into something new, about how pain could be transformed into art, into determination, into connection with others who understood. Vexathari told her about his grandfather, who had been a blade master, about Krillian poetry, which was about battle but also about honor and beauty, about how lost he felt in a galaxy that didn't seem to need warriors anymore. When Yuna left, the guard at the door looked at her with new respect. You're braver than most, the Vorath said, going in there alone. I wasn't alone, Yuna said. I was with someone who needed a friend. Meanwhile, Hana was doing her own investigation. She had noticed something odd about the Academy's admission records. Using her medical access codes, she dug deeper into the student database. What she found made her angry. She brought her findings to Taemin, spreading data files across his workstation. Look at this. 3 human applicants before us, all rejected. So, Taemin said, lots of applicants get rejected. Look at their scores, perfect marks on the entrance exams, excellent recommendations, but they were all rejected for insufficient adaptation capability. Hana pulled up more files. Now look at this. Deathworld species have a 60% higher rejection rate than other species with similar qualifications. Taemin leaned closer, reading the data. His expression darkened. That's discrimination. It gets worse. Hana showed him another file. The entrance requirements subtly favor species from low-gravity, peaceful worlds. The questions are biased. The evaluation criteria assume that adaptation means becoming less of what you are, not bringing what you are to a new place. We need to report this. To who? The Academy administration? They're part of the system. Hana sat back. We need to go bigger. Student council, public forums. Make this something they can't ignore. They spent the next week building their case. They documented everything. Admission patterns, evaluation biases, subtle discrimination in housing assignments where Deathworld species were given the least desirable quarters. Course offerings that assumed all students came from peaceful backgrounds. Hana presented their findings to the student council. The room was packed with students from dozens of species. The council members, elected representatives, listened carefully. This isn't just about humans, Hana said. This affects every species from challenging worlds. It's systemic bias dressed up as standards. A council member, a Litharian named Crystal Song, spoke up. These are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Pages of it. Taman projected the data for everyone to see. The Academy talks about diversity, but the system is designed to favor certain kinds of students. Peaceful students, fragile students, students who won't make waves. The discussion went on for hours. Some council members denied there was a problem. Others were shocked by the evidence. A few admitted they had noticed the patterns but hadn't connected them to discrimination. What do you want us to do? Asked another council member. Form a committee, Hana said. Review the admission policies. Add representatives from Deathworld species to decision-making positions. Create support systems for students who come from traumatic backgrounds like conquered worlds or harsh environments. Make the Academy actually serve all students, not just the comfortable ones. The vote was close, but it passed. The Academy would review its policies. Back in her dorm, Yuna was preparing for her hearing. She had been told to dress formally, to be respectful, to speak only when spoken to. The future of human enrollment at the Academy might depend on what she said. Hana burst into the room. You won't believe what we just did. Yuna listened as Hana explained the student council meeting. Despite her nerves about the hearing, she felt pride swell in her chest. That's amazing, Hana. You inspired it, Hana said, watching you handle Vexathari, seeing how you turned something scary into something constructive. That made me think, what else needs changing? Everything changes if enough people want it to, Yuna said. It was something her grandmother used to say. The next day, Yuna visited Vexathari again. This time, she brought a data pad with information about Korean martial arts. Not the violent parts, the philosophy. Taekwondo isn't just about fighting, she explained. It's about discipline, respect, self-control. The highest level isn't defeating your enemy. It's not needing to fight at all. Vexathari studied the information carefully. We have something similar. Blade meditation. Warriors would practice forms for hours, training the body and mind together. It was about perfect control. Could you teach me? Yuna asked. His carapace flashed bright blue. Surprise. You want to learn from me? I want to learn with you. Share techniques. Your blade meditation sounds beautiful. For the first time since she'd met him, Vexathari made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. The human who defeated me wants me to teach her. The galaxy would think this is madness. The galaxy thinks a lot of things, Yuna said, smiling. Doesn't mean they're right. They talked about training methods, about philosophy, about how different cultures approach the concept of strength. Vexathari seemed lighter when she left, less burdened. The guard at the door stopped her. You're doing something good here, the Vorath said. I've guarded a lot of prisoners. Most get worse in detention, angrier. He's getting better. He was never bad, Yuna said. Just lost. The hearing was in 2 days. The galaxy was still watching. But now, quietly, things were beginning to change. Not with force. Not with violence, with understanding, with patience, with the kind of strength that didn't need to prove itself by hurting others. Yuna thought of her grandmother and hoped she was making her proud. The hearing chamber was enormous. Yuna had never seen so many species in one place. The Confederacy Council had representatives from every member world. Some sat in chairs. Others floated in tanks. A few existed as pure energy contained in special fields. All of them were here to decide if humans belonged at the academy. Yuna wore a traditional hanbok, the formal Korean dress her mother had sent from Earth. It was deep blue with delicate embroidery. She had researched Confederacy customs and learned that formal dress showed respect. She wanted to show respect even to people who might vote against her. She sat in a witness chair in the center of the chamber. Above her, the council members sat in a circle so they could all see her. It felt like being at the bottom of a well with hundreds of eyes looking down. Administrator Plex spoke first. This hearing will determine whether humans pose a safety risk to other students. We will hear testimony, review evidence, and make a determination. The Thakari's silver scales glinted under the lights. Student Yuna, please tell us in your own words what happened during the incident with Vexathari. Yuna spoke clearly. She explained everything. Vexathari's stress, the blade, her response. She didn't try to make herself sound heroic. She just told the truth. I used what I knew about Krillian anatomy to stop him without injury. I never wanted to hurt him. I wanted to keep him and everyone else safe. Yet you displayed significant combat capability, said Council Member Torx, a Vorath warrior. You neutralized an armed opponent in under 3 seconds. I grew up in a place where awareness kept you alive, Yuna said. My grandmother taught me to pay attention to my surroundings, to understand the creatures around me. That's not combat training. That's survival education. A Letharian council member spoke, their crystalline body chiming softly. Many species fear humans now. They see you as dangerous predators. Yuna took a breath. This was important. May I tell you about my grandmother? The council members looked at each other. Administrator Plex nodded. Proceed. My grandmother lived through war, through occupation, through times when having enough food was a blessing. She lived in mountains where winter could kill you if you weren't careful, where wild animals were neighbors, not attractions. She taught me many things, but the most important was this. Strength without compassion is just violence. Compassion without strength is just words. You need both. Yuna looked around at the council members. Earth is hard. We don't deny that. But hardship taught us something precious. It taught us that life is valuable, that every day you survive is a gift, that working together works better than fighting alone. Humans reached space not because we're violent, but because we learned cooperation was the only way to survive our own world. Pretty words, another council member said, but the video shows capability for violence. The video shows restraint, Yuna corrected respectfully. I could have hurt Vexathari badly. His species has vulnerable points that could have caused permanent damage. I didn't use them. I controlled him with minimum force. Isn't that what you want? People who can protect others without causing unnecessary harm? Council Member Torx leaned forward. You're saying humans are dangerous but choose not to be? I'm saying humans understand danger, so we're very careful with it. We know what harm looks like. We've seen it throughout our history. That's exactly why we try so hard not to cause it. The questioning continued for hours. They asked about Earth's history, about human wars, about violence in human culture. Yuna answered everything honestly. She didn't hide the hard parts. Earth had been violent. Humans had fought terrible wars. But they had also built peace. They had created art and music and philosophy about harmony. They had formed a united planetary government after centuries of division. We're not perfect, Yuna said. No species is. But we're trying to be better than our past. Isn't that what civilization is? Choosing to be better than you were? Finally, they called Vexthari. He entered in restraints, flanked by guards. His carapace was pale blue now, a neutral color. He stood before the council. Vexthari, Administrator Plex said. You have been in detention since the incident. You've also been meeting with the human student you attacked. Why? Because she offered, Vexthari said simply. She came to detention with tea and questions. She wanted to understand me. No one else did. Do you still believe she's dangerous? Vexthari's carapace flickered through several colors. I believe I misunderstood what danger means. She could have hurt me. She chose not to. That's not danger. That's mercy. He paused, then continued. My people were warriors. I thought strength was about defeating enemies. Yuna showed me that real strength is choosing when to fight and when to talk. She's stronger than I ever was because she has control. Control of her actions. Control of her reactions. That's what warriors spend their lives learning. She already knows it. The council members discussed among themselves. The hearing was adjourned for deliberation. Yuna left the chamber feeling exhausted. Taemin and Hana were waiting outside. You were amazing, Hana said, hugging her. I just told the truth, Yuna said. Sometimes that's the most radical thing you can do, Taemin said. 3 days later, the council announced their decision. Humans would not be expelled. Instead, the Academy would implement comprehensive reforms. Mandatory classes on Deathworld species for all students. Bias training for faculty. Support systems for students from traumatized or conquered worlds. And humans would be invited to help design new safety protocols that actually made sense. But something else happened too, something Yuna hadn't expected. Student council elections were held the following month. Yuna hadn't planned to run, she was too busy with her studies, but other students nominated her. Not just humans, species from across the galaxy, even some Letharians who had initially been afraid of her. She won by a massive majority. Her first act as student council president was to establish the Understanding Through Shared Struggle program. Students from difficult backgrounds, whether harsh worlds or troubled histories, could find support and community. Vexthari became one of the first participants. The second act was to partner with Earth to create an interspecies counseling program. Too many species in the galaxy carried trauma. Conquest, environmental collapse, war. They needed help, and humans, who had experienced all of these things, could offer perspective. Yuna also started teaching self-defense classes, but not the kind people expected. She taught awareness, reading body language, understanding when someone was afraid versus when they were aggressive, de-escalation techniques, minimum necessary force. Her classes became the most popular elective at the Academy. Vexthari, after his hearing and counseling, returned to classes. He and Yuna studied together. He taught her Krillian blade meditation, the ancient practice of his people. She taught him Korean martial philosophy. They became an unlikely pair, often seen in the training rooms, practicing forms that blended their two cultures. You changed my life, Vexthari told her one day. You changed your own life, Yuna corrected. I just offered tea and conversation. That was more than anyone else offered. Earth Studies became a major program at the Academy. Students wanted to understand the planet that produced such confusing people. People who could be deadly, but chose to be kind. Who came from hell and brought gardens. Who had every reason to be violent, but worked tirelessly for peace. Taemin graduated with honors. His thesis was about human engineering approaches inspired by survival necessity. He was hired immediately by a major Confederacy research facility. Hana continued her campaign for systemic reform. The Academy administration, facing pressure from the student body, implemented over 40 changes to admission policies and student support systems. Deathworld species enrollment increased by 300% in 2 years. One evening, a year after the incident, Yuna stood in the observation deck looking at the purple nebula. It still took her breath away. Vexathari joined her, moving quietly on his 6 legs. "Thinking about home?" he asked. "Always," Yuna said, "but this is becoming home too. Because you made it one. You didn't come here to conquer or to hide. You came to build bridges." "We all did," Yuna said. "Every species here is trying to understand each other. That's the point of the academy, to learn that different doesn't mean dangerous." Vexathari's carapace shifted to a warm golden color. Contentment. "I heard the council is considering you for the Confederacy Youth Ambassador position." Yuna laughed. "That's just a rumor." "It's not. I heard Administrator Plex talking about it. They want someone who represents what the Confederacy should be. Someone who understands both strength and peace. I'm just a student from the mountains." "No," Vexthari said firmly. "You're the person who looked at a blade and saw a troubled friend. You're the person who could have hurt me and chose understanding instead. You're exactly what the galaxy needs." Months later, Yuna stood before a new group of first-year students. As student council president, she gave the welcome speech. "You come from many worlds," she said. "Some of you come from places like Earth, where every day was a fight to survive. Others come from peaceful paradises, where violence is ancient history. All of you have value. All of you have something to teach and something to learn." She looked across the crowd of different species, different bodies, different minds, all gathered in one place. The galaxy thinks in categories: dangerous species, peaceful species, advanced civilizations, primitive cultures. But those categories are too simple. Every species has strength. Every species has wisdom. Our job here isn't to prove which species is best. It's to learn from each other so we can all be better. She smiled, the same calm smile she had worn when facing a blade. "Welcome to Velthara Station. Welcome to a place where different minds meet, where Deathworld survivors and crystal singers, warriors, and poets all learn together. This is where the galaxy's future is built, not through conquest or dominance, through understanding." The applause that followed came from every kind of hand, claw, tentacle, and manipulator appendage in the room. Later, Yuna messaged her grandmother on Earth. She told her about the speech, about the changes at the academy, about the new students arriving from 20 worlds, including 3 recently discovered death worlds. Her grandmother's reply was simple. "You are doing what the mountains taught you, surviving with grace. I am proud." Yuna looked out at the stars and thought about her journey. From a small village in Korean mountains to the center of galactic education. From a scared first-year student to someone who helped change an entire system. She hadn't wielded a blade. She hadn't conquered anyone. She had simply smiled, offered understanding, and showed the galaxy that the greatest strength was choosing when not to use force. The Deathworld girl had taken over, not through violence, but through something far more powerful, through compassion that refused to break. Through strength that protected rather than destroyed, through the simple revolutionary act of treating everyone, even those who threatened her, with dignity and respect. The galaxy was learning, and Yuna was teaching them one conversation, one cup of tea, one moment of understanding at a time. Outside the window, the purple nebula glowed eternal. Inside the station, thousands of students from hundreds of worlds lived and learned together. And somewhere in the training room, a Krillian warrior and a Korean girl practiced blade forms together, their movements blending 2 cultures into something beautiful and new. This was the future. This was what Deathworld survivors brought to the stars. Not weapons, not fear, hope, understanding, and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a chance to be better than their worst moment. Yuna smiled at the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. She was always ready. After all, she came from Earth, and Earth taught its children that nothing worth having was ever easy, but everything worth fighting for was worth protecting with kindness. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand.